after some last minute changes and a release that is planned to come into the game in 2 entirely different updates. And if you aren't completely up to date on all of the new blogs that have been released recently, I figured it'd be a great time to drop a video summarizing basically what's going to be coming into the game with Forestry this week and what we can expect in the future. To kick off all the things that we'll be releasing alongside this week's game update, first off we have tree timers. So now regardless of whether there is one person chopping a tree or 25, trees will now despawn on a timer that activates after the first cut, and it will regenerate if all players stop cutting that tree before it's fully chopped down. With this change, each individual tree within the game will get a buff in its XP per hour rates, and the time breakdowns currently look like this. An oak will last 27 seconds, a willow 30, a teak 30, a maple tree will last 1 minute, hollow trees will last 36 seconds, a mahogany tree will last a minute, Arctic pines will be a minute and 24 seconds, yew trees will be a minute 54, magics being 3 minutes and 54 seconds, and then finally redwood trees will last 4 minutes and 24 seconds. It is important to note that these timers will go into effect for every tree within the game except for standard trees, so all trees, even including the ones within the Woodcutting Guild, will benefit from this change, but they will be keeping a close eye after release if they do need to make any adjustments to these times. Next up, releasing this week, we have Group Boost. With a minimum number of 2 players chopping a tree and a maximum of 10, each player will receive a +1 invisible bonus to your woodcutting level for each person at the tree. So this means if 4 people are engaged on one tree, you'll receive an invisible +4 on top of your woodcutting level. With this change, I do want to note it will not impact normal trees for obvious reasons, and it will also not go into effect within the Woodcutting Guild. Considering the Woodcutting Guild already has an invisible +7, they feel that the guild already has enough convenience with what it offers that it doesn't need to increase any more from this benefit. But with that said, similar to the +7 invisible boost from the Woodcutting Guild, the new +10 from the Group Boost will be able to be stacked with any visible bonuses that will be within the game, being the current Dragon Ass special attack, or the ones that come from the future teas and campfires with the later release of Forestry. Now for possibly the most important item when it comes to forestry outside of just a woodcutting axe, we have the Forestry Kit. The Forestry Kit will be a new wearable item within the cape slot, and you'll basically want to purchase this as soon as the update goes live. This kit will allow you to store all of the new tools and materials, basically to interact and trigger any of the update content. After this week's release, anytime a tree is chopped, there will be a chance for it to drop leaves as well as logs. And for convenience sake, if you do happen to have your Forestry Kit equipped, they will automatically fall into your backpack so you can use them for future recipes. Here's what the inside of the Forestry Kit is going to look like. First off will be the trading currency within the reward shop, which is the anima infused bark. And then all of the items we'll touch on in just a minute, which will help trigger some of the events, being the Leprechaun Charm, Bee on a Stick, Nature Offerings, Forestry Rations, and then the Secateurs Attachment, along with all of the leaves and needles from each of the individual trees within the game. Now for the rewards, first up we have two-handed axes. And these are essentially just direct upgrades to all of the current axes in-game, including the Third Age axe. These axes will require the same woodcutting level to use as their predecessors, and they're created by purchasing the axe handle from the forestry shop and simply attaching it to the handle of your current axe. The process is irreversible, but both the original axe handle and the two-handed axes will be tradable on the GE. But now for the two-handed axe's new mechanics, it will chop at the same speed as a regular axe, but with the funky benefit of gaining extra experience but getting fewer logs. This new benefit will use your run energy at a cost of 40 points per swing, but you'll receive 18% more experience for each successful hit of the tree, with a 20% chance not to gain a log. Now 40 points of run energy seems like a lot, and it definitely is, but this is where forestry rations come in. These rations will require 35 cooking and wood cutting to make, and they are created using one pile of any type of leaves and a slice of cooked meat. And the way these rations work is they will restore 30 points of your run energy per hit of a tree, which makes using two-handed axes actually much more efficient because these forestry rations are automatically eaten and stackable within your forestry kit. But overall, when using both of these rewards in tandem, being the two-handed axe and the forester's rations, they've estimated a bump in 10% XP per hour. Now, first up for the event items, we have the Leprechaun Charm. And this can be created with 70 crafting, 70 woodcutting, and 35 farming. You'll buy a clover insignia from the forestry shop and combine that with an emerald and a ball of wool to create 10 leprechaun charms. These charms attract the attention of leprechauns, so when someone in your group successfully chops down a tree having this charm in their kit, there is a chance that a leprechaun will offer their services. Next up, we have a bee on a stick. The bee on a stick will help trigger the pollinate plants event, and this item can be created with 50, 100, and 35 woodcutting. You'll just need to buy some powdered pollen at the forestry shop and combine that with a ball of wool, logs, and be within close proximity of a beehive to create 10 bees on a stick. Then we have nature offerings. And these offerings are used when cutting a tree to give you a 60 to 80% chance to receive an additional log. It is important to note that these will be used whether you receive the additional log or not, and you can create them with 50 farming and 68 woodcutting. You'll buy some ritual mulch at the forestry shop and combine that with one high tier herb, being either an avento, quorum, snap, cadentine, lantidine, dwarfweed, or torstal. And doing so will create 40 nature offerings. Forester's Rations we already touched on, and if you do happen to read this, it says around 3 points of run energy per ration consumed, but this was buffed all the way to 30. So finally we have the Secateurs Attachments. In case you want some extra leaves, these handy clippers are perfect for just that, granting you nearly double. They'll be created with 35 smithing and 35 woodcutting. You'll need to buy a Secateurs blade from the forestry shop and combine this with an iron bar to create 50 of the Secateurs Attachments. And then lastly, I do want to mention that all of these kits are tradable and stackable, meaning they can be bought and sold on the Grand Exchange or between players. So you can either get all of the rewards with basically none of the work, or you can put in a little bit of work and possibly increase your GP an hour while still getting some solid woodcutting gains. Now for the biggest part of the entire update, as if all of that other stuff wasn't already enough, we have the events. Anytime an individual is cutting a tree with the Forestry Kit, there is a chance for an event to spawn. As long as there is no event already occurring within 10 tiles of that tree being chopped, players will always have the potential to spawn an event that everybody can participate in. You'll see an average of 4 to 5 events per hour if you're chopping by yourself, whereas a group of 10 plus players chopping a single tree should expect an average of 7 to 9 events per hour. Some events won't require any additional equipment aside from a Forestry Kit to spawn them, but if an event does require an item, it will check every single player chopping the tree for that item, and then if nobody has it, the event won't spawn. So as long as one person chopping that tree has the necessary item, it will appear if the roll has been successful. And that's not the only benefit of having all of those items ready to go in your Forestry Kit, because anyone chopping a tree with either a bee on a stick for the flowering event or a Leprechaun Charm for the leprechaun event who has one of their items consumed will gain a bonus reward and experience when the event occurs. And then one last note when it comes to events before we jump into some of the more specifics is they are balanced across all different types of tree. Whereas a oak tree has a much shorter timer in comparison to something like a yew tree, they'll both have roughly the same chance of spawning the same number of events per hour. And as I mentioned earlier, no matter who spawns the event, everybody in the surrounding area can partake in it regardless of whether you have the necessary items in your Forestry Kit or not. First things first, for the 4 events that are going to be being released with Part 1 of Forestry, we have Rising Roots. Roots will suddenly appear trying to protect their woody brethren, cut them down for some experience and anima-infused bark, and as a special note, they put make sure to keep an eye out for the ones that glow with energy. Next up, we have the Flowering Tree, and this is where bees will appear alongside new flowers that want to bloom. Find the right 2 flowers to move pollen between them for experience, anima-infused bark, and some seeds or tasty treats. And for this event to spawn, you will need a bee on a stick. Next up, we have the Struggling Sapling. Help the poor sapling grow big and strong. Create the right combination of mulch to feed the baby tree before it withers away. For participating in this event, you will get some experience alongside anima-infused bark. And then finally, for the 4th event, we have the Leprechaun Charm. And for this event, a friendly leprechaun will appear upon the chopping of your tree, and he'll take your woodcutting resources straight to the bank for you without the necessary need to bank. And as we mentioned earlier, you will need a Leprechaun Charm in order to spawn this event. All of these events will scale in experience and difficulty depending on the number of players present in the area. This ensures that no matter how many people are there, even if you're in a large group, you'll be well rewarded for your efforts. Now for the final part of this week's Forestry release, we have rewards. The reward shop will be accessed through the Freaky Forester, and I am unable to confirm whether there's going to be more than one of these located around the world, but we can confirm that one of which will be located sitting just outside of the Draenor Bank, and this will be the best way to access the reward shop on release. And then as for the reward shop, here's what it should roughly look like. Right at the top we have the Forestry Kit being the most important item in the entire update, and then next up we have the 4 items covering all of the things we already touched on earlier, being the blade, the mulch insignia, and the pollen. And then for some other items we haven't talked about yet, first up we have the log basket, and this is essentially just the fish barrel of woodcutting. The log basket is an untradeable reward that allows you to store up to 28 logs in it, essentially a second inventory. And then next up we have the log brace, and this will allow you to combine the log basket with your forestry kit. And the log brace itself will be tradable, but in order to purchase it to combine it to your own basket, you'll have to purchase it with 3,000 anima infused bark, 10 maple logs, 10 yew logs, and you'll need 75 smithing and woodcutting alongside 45 nails, 2 ropes, and 3 addy bars to make it. And then after that we have the same old lumberjack outfit, which when fully equipped will give you a 2.5% bonus to your woodcutting XP. This outfit itself isn't any more special than the one obtained from temple trekking. It'll just be a different type of content in order to obtain the same outfit. Then after that, the forestry boots, hat, legs, and top are no different. They are essentially just a cosmetic upgrade to the existing lumberjack outfit. And then for our last 2 items in the reward shop, we have the funky shaped log and then the closed pouch blueprint. For the funky shaped log, it will be purchased with 15,000 anima infused bark and 50 of the following logs noted. And this is essentially just a transmog for the beaver pet. And then finally we have the closed pouch, and purchasing this item will cost 10,000 anima infused bark, 10 willow logs noted, and 10 maple logs noted. Then you'll need 50 crafting and woodcutting with some thread and leather to craft it. But when purchased, this closed pouch will allow you to throw your lumberjack outfit inside of it and gain all of the benefits while wearing any other fashionscape items you want. One very important thing to note though is any other outfit bonuses will override your closed pouch. Meaning if you are wearing a graceful top, your lumberjack top in the closed pouch will be ignored. But apart from that, there is still plenty of other content that's going to be added to the game with Forestry in Part 2. Currently, Part 2 is set to release sometime in August after a ton of feedback is going to be given. If you hadn't seen any of the current process, there was a ton of backlash on some of the content that was going to be being released. That itself is the entire reason we're getting Forestry in 2 massive separate updates. So with that, some of the things we're going to be expecting from Part 2 are the changes to leaves and roots, bringing in some new tertiary effects, alongside campfires and the ability to make new teas to offer new boosts. We'll also be getting more events and more rewards alongside balancing and tweaks to whatever needs changed after the first iteration. But with all that said, that is absolutely everything you need to know about Forestry that we currently know today. A ton of the content coming from Part 2 is still set to be pulled and up in the air, and we'll be having plenty of player feedback prior to its final release. But hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you did, consider dropping a like and subscribe if you're new. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video.